Hello, movie lovers. Welcome back to SignaTeak channel. Today is all about fresh cinema experiences, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on the newest film making its mark. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the recap of this exciting cinematic adventure. When the film opens in Sicily, Lorenzo drives with his son to a remote winery, but arrives after several people have already been murdered there. He grabbed his gun and told his son to stay in the car. Lorenzo was escorted into the building by one of the guards, where he saw more bodies being slaughtered, and when they reached the basement, two guards pointed guns at Robert. Lorenzo asks Robert what his purpose is, and he replies that he's come to take back something that is not his. Lorenzo is impressed that Robert was able to track him and warns him that he will not leave the winery alive. Robert fights back within the next 9 seconds, challenging Lorenzo's safety. Robert instantly kills all of the guards with one of his weapons. Lorenzo lies on the ground and tries to crawl away. Robert grabs the shotgun and kills him, taking the keys from Lorenzo's belt. As they exited the building, Robert pointed a gun at Lorenzo's son, but he eluded him and moved on. However, the young man makes an attempt. When Robert tried to retaliate, the boy dropped the gun and fled. Robert soon realized that he had been shot in the back. While driving home, Robert passes out and is discovered by one of the local police officers, O takes Robert to a local doctor, Enzo, to help treat him. When he wakes up, he is unable to answer Enzo's question about whether they saved the good guys or the bad guys. Nevertheless, Enzo closely monitored Robert's recovery, and by the third day, Robert was well enough to walk around the city using his cane. Robert stopped at a local cafe where he ordered tea, but Amina served him coffee instead. Then Gio came along with his daughter Gabby. Gio then handed over his car keys and left. At Enzo's house, Robert anonymously calls the CIA's Financial Operations Group and speaks with Agent Collins. He reports discovering a strange winery in Sicily that appears to be importing wine from Syria. Robert spends the next few days at the market getting to know the locals and various business owners. One day, he noticed that a gang was extorting money from a shopkeeper. As he passes by, he hears Angelo being hit by Marco. Robert watches the gang leave the store after warning Angelo to come get the money. The next day, Robert visits Angelo's store to buy fish. Angelo refuses to pay Robert and explains that it is an honor for Enzo's friends to come to his store. Meanwhile, a team of CIA agents, including Collins, discovered millions of dollars as well as illegal drugs at a winery in Sicily. These activities weren't even on their radar, so Emma and her colleague Frank decided to keep looking for all the information they could find. Enzo examines Robert's wounds, and Robert asks why Enzo didn't call the police. However, Enzo insisted that the fact that Robert himself didn't know if he was a good person was a sign of a good person. Vincent, who had just finished praying, met his brother Mark in front of the church. He instructed Marco to prepare for larger plans at Altamonte. Robert was packing his things and preparing to leave. As he was walking outside with his luggage, he noticed people making a fuss. They are surprised to see Angelo's store on fire, and Robert sees the gang watching from a distance. He then helped Angelo clean up, while Gio looked at the surveillance camera footage and formally requested identification of the van's owner. While having tea as usual at Amina's cafe, he noticed that Emma was taking a picture of him. Emma tries to ask about the winery, but Robert gives vague answers. She tells him to stay close and walks away, saying his name. Immediately asks the teacher and learns that a police officer picked up Gabby a while ago. O rushes home and finds his wife and daughter captured by Marco and his men. As Joe's family watches, Marco wants revenge for Joe's investigation in the van and threatens them before leaving. Robert notices Joe's bandages as he leaves Enzo's office. Robert then asks Enzo, who explains that incidents like this are common not only in their city, but also in other places due to criminal organizations like Chimera. Robert jogged to church and met Collins there. Robert asked her if she believed in miracles, to which she replied that she did not. She tells him that he is not interested in the Sicily case. She admitted that the Sicilian farmer Lorenzo had been on Interpol's wanted list for 10 years. Collins asks Robert why he chose her to be her anonymous informant, but he says that he should focus instead on why Sicily was the target of her smuggling operations. Collins promised to find answers and said she would like to know the reasons for her choices at the next meeting. That night, Marco interrupts Joe's family dinner and tells him to go to Somalia to buy a boat. He then spots Robert sitting at the table across from him and warns him not to disturb him. Robert asks Marco to take his friend and go somewhere else. But Marco laughed. Robert warns Marco of the pinched nerve in his hand, and Marco complies with his request. Before leaving, Robert instructed Marco to leave his gun behind. Marco left, and Robert continued with his dinner. Marco becomes furious and begins ranting about killing Robert. A van hit his friend as he reached for his friend's gun. Robert showed up and fought Marco. He quickly overwhelmed him and left. Their bodies were discovered by police the next morning. In Rome, Collins receives a call from Frank about the recent train station bombing. At that time, the money used in the attack was said to be the same money used for drugs. She tells Frank that she will take on the mission to gather more information about the intergroup. Mr. Collins met with the Naples police chief and asked for permission to question several men, which was granted to all but one. Under these circumstances, Emma insisted on interviewing the man. Director Barrera then visits Vincent and informs him of the CIA's arrival. He suggested that Vincent cease all activities, believing that Collins would soon find out about his business. But Vincent did not give in. Instead, Vincent orders him to find Marco's murderer. Chief Barella is angry at Vincent's stubbornness and reminds him that he is no match for him, infuriating him. He then cut her hand, left her with threats, and had her husband accompany her to the car. Mr. Collins was informed that Chief Barrera had been attacked and received a call from Mr. Robert, who told him that it was Mr. Kimura and not the terrorist. As Emma approaches the man she was trying to accompany, an explosion occurs, injuring everyone. Mrs. Collins was immediately taken to the hospital, and Mr. Frank assured her that he would take care of the rest of her work. Vincent takes Gio and his family hostage and tells the city of Altamonte to bring him the person responsible for his brother's death. He shot Josie and threatened to kill his family if he did not betray the perpetrator. Vincent is interrupted by Robert's screams demanding he appear. Robert slowly appears and tells Vincent to help the others and only get revenge. However, Vincent decides to kill him in front of people to warn them about Kimura. Just as Vincent is about to shoot Robert, Enzo retaliates and everyone pulls out their phones and records everything. Vincent was warned that police were coming and was urged to leave the scene. Vincent intended to kill Robert the next day, but Robert sneaked into Vincent's apartment and killed the guards one by one. Vincent is awakened by a drop of blood and discovers Simone's body. Vincent, armed with a gun, sails silently and discovers the corpses of his men. Startled, Vincent fires randomly here and there until Robert knocks him down. When Robert warns him that he has 6 minutes left before the drug stops his heart, Vincent wakes up and removes the restraints. Vincent tried to run away from Robert, but Robert pursued him until his last breath. Collins followed the news of Kimura's successful surgery at the hospital. She was interrupted by Robert, who thanked him for calling her on the day she could have avoided serious injury from the explosion. Mrs. Collins had a bag full of cash, which she thought she had stolen in Sicily, but Robert told him about Mr. Dyer, who had lost his pension in a cyber attack. Collins soon realizes that Robert has been on the trail of a raid on a winery in Sicily, where Robert kills Lorenzo and his men, takes the key to the safe, and takes the money Dyer owes him. They took exactly the same amount. Collins asks if Dyer is a friend, but Robert says no and leaves him the money. Mr. Collins went to Boston to deliver the money to Mr. Dyer and his wife, who were relieved that they would not lose their home. The couple thanked Emma, who thanked the stranger who did it for them. Returning to her office, Emma receives a package containing her mother's diary and a note from Robert. It is then revealed that Emma is the daughter of Robert's CIA friends Brian and Susan Plummer. However, in El Tamonte, Robert celebrates the soccer team's victory with the locals. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed this film recap and want more, subscribe now, like, and share captivating stories with your friends. Tell me which movie you'd like me to summarize next. See you soon.